Okay. We are preparing to live stream.
I've got the indication you're live streaming.
But this one says it's still setting up. There we go. Okay. And I just muted the YouTube. Good, good. All right. 11:02. And people are streaming in through the doors of the church. Hi, Ed.
Good morning. I don't want to keep you, you're busy doing the work.
Well, let's just get started here, folks. As usual, I don't have my act together. I'm supposed to have a candle to light to bring us all together. Welcome to Community Church of Boston, everybody, and it's good to see. Here's going to be my candle. This is my cell phone flashlight, and I'm not going to try to burn it, but just give you a sense of love and light that we're sending to you from here at the auditorium of the church. We have about a half a dozen people gathered here, and I'm going to turn that off to not burden you with it. Usually we try to light a candle and not set off the fire alarm. And we have just a marvelous kick-ass show for you. Not a show, a sacred event. How about, let's call it that. As usual, we love to start with music, and we try to find the most incredible, beautiful music that we can, and this morning is no exception. The sound check, I was already in goosebumps and in tears to have my friends Magpie with us, Terry Leonino and Greg Artsner. We're so glad to have you with us. It's from upstate New York, and I've just put you on the big screen.
We just lit our Harriet Tubman candle for you.
Thank you, thank you.
All right.
Shall we do a song then?
Are you ready for a song?
Yeah. Thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
All right. So I thought we'd begin with this song that we were sound checking with a few minutes ago. Some years ago, Terry and I went out to Bear Butte at with the invitation of good friends of ours in the Dakota Nation, the Sisseton Dakota Nation.
This was a support song to help save the Bighorn medicine wheel.
And we were able to do a Hamdechia on Bear Butte, and so this is the song that came out of that experience. Before we sing, we should mention that we here in New York, we are actually on the traditional lands of the Mohawk Nation. So this song is called Eagle and the Hawk. Out across the prairie, cloud shadows on the run. Miles away I see them chased by wind and cast by a sun. The spirit on this mountain today and yesterday is a song you feel within you that the wind and trees do play. Crying in this holy place, eyes open through the night, that I might see what you can only see in darkest light. One thing I see for certain in the light of stars above, if we love this land we walk upon, we've got to hold on to what we love, to what we love. spiral ever closer to the sun, to soar so high so easily. She's the only one. Dancing in this holy place, eyes open through the night, that I might see what you can only see in darkest light. One thing I see for certain in the light of stars above, if we love this land we walk upon, we've got to hold on to what we love, to what we love. But what's this now I'm seeing? Just a speck against the blue. A red-tailed hawk is following, he wants to go there too. But for him it's not so easy to ride the currents high. He soars and falls and beats again, struggling to fly. Rain in this holy place, eyes open through the night, and I might see what you can only see in darkest light. One thing I see for certain in the light of stars above, if we love this land we walk upon, we gotta hold on to what we love, to what we love. Have to stop and rest yourself, it takes a long, long time. Well, I know I'm bound to stumble as I struggle day to day, but with those who've gone before me, I'm walking on this way. Listening in this holy place, eyes open through the night, that I might see what you can only see in darkest light. One thing I see for certain in the light of stars above, if we love this land we walk upon, we gotta hold on to what we love, to what we love. Crying in this holy place, eyes open through the night, that I might see what you can only see in darkest light. One thing I see for certain in the light of stars above, if we love this land we walk upon, we gotta hold on to what we love, to what we love.
Thank you, Greg and Terry. Whoops. Am I unmuted? I think I'm unmuted. Thank you, Greg and Terry. Again, welcome to Community Church. A bunch of folks has joined us. A little bit of news about what's gone on here recently. Yesterday, we said goodbye to Reverend Bill Alberts, who was our minister for 13 years. There was a beautiful memorial service at Arlington Street Church, very well attended and much more suited for social distancing. They hold 500 people in that auditorium. We hold about 100. And that was followed by an event we had here at the church, which was an open forum on Afghanistan, featuring a couple of veterans and a poli-sci professor from Boston University. It was a marvelous event streamed by Mass Peace Action and Veterans for Peace. We are still experimenting with this hybrid method, which includes some folks here live behind us, and includes all of you out there. So welcome. And I want to start with what I was going to sing last night at the Afghanistan event, but didn't get a chance to because they had some great music streamed in, hip hop. I'm just going to read it. It's a song by Susan Werner, but it's called Together. There must be a time, there must be a place when everyone will finally come together. If there is a God with a human face, I'm sure he'd want us to all come together. Get beyond these bolted doors, get beyond these awful bloody wars, get beyond this way of settling scores because the score is never even. And if I had the words, then I'd make the case that everyone has got to come together. If I had the hounds, I'd call off the chase and everyone would finally come together and we'd get beyond who's right and wrong, get beyond the need to look so strong and just get on with simply getting along. Because that's the thing we can all believe in. It's enough of the bitter tears. It's enough of talking to our mirrors. It's enough of separate hemispheres. It's enough. It's enough. We really got to come together. We've got to come together. We come to you from Massachusetts land, and Narragansett and Nipmuc land, and Wampanoag. They all were around this area. We also come to you from a place that used to be water. The fishies used to swim right underneath here and were caught in fish weirs that have been found in archaeological digs in the Boston Common and in the Public Garden area. So it's reclaimed from the ocean and reclaimed and stolen from those tribes. We recognize that and honor them and resolve to figure out a way to right that wrong. Another thing we do is open this book, read Eduardo Galeano, Children of the Days. It's kind of like a religious lectionary, but this is little stories, paragraph long. I haven't even read this one, but it's November 24th, so I'll just read it. It's called Grandma. In 1974, her bones turned up in the Rocky Hills of Ethiopia. Her discoverers called her Lucy. Thanks to advanced technology, they were able to calculate her age at about 3,175,000 years, give or take a day or two. Also, her height, she was rather short, a little over 3 feet tall. The rest was deduced or maybe guessed. Her body was quite hairy, and she didn't walk on all fours. Rather, she swung along in chimpanzee walk, her hands nearly grazing the ground, though she preferred the treetops. She might have drowned in a river. She might have been fleeing a lion or some other unknown who showed an interest in her. She was born long before fire or the word, but perhaps she spoke a language of gestures and sounds that could have said or tried to say, for example, I'm cold. I'm hungry. Don't leave me alone. I want to tell you all that we have a beautiful set of programs coming up every Sunday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern time. And you have to say that because a bunch of the musicians are going to be coming from a lot of other time zones. I was just talking with one of my very favorite British guitarists and songwriters. His name is Steve Tilston, and he's joining us in January. We have friends in Switzerland. We have, of course, friends in California, Emma's Revolution joining us. We're also starting a new set of programs, which are going to happen Friday nights, and they're going to be called Winter Fridays. And they are sort of my tribute to a whole lot of musicians who have suffered so much during this time of COVID because of their lost income and the lost tours. And it's going to be every Friday, and it's going to be a combination of money that I got Community Church to pony up and some money that I got my mom to pony up. And we're also going to sell tickets and have a PayPal and Venmo tip jar for musicians every Friday night at 7 p.m. And it's going to be really fun. I'll tell you the real reason that I decided to do this. My wife plays Scrabble every Friday night, so I'm all by myself. But there's certain ones she won't play Scrabble because there's some players that she really loves and wants to be part of. We have so much going on here today that I want to just go ahead and start with, how about, Kathy Hoffman, you set the agenda here for, okay, yes. Let's go for it. We want to remind everybody that Winona LaDuke was not able to join us live today because she realized that she had to be traveling. And so instead, she gave us a recorded message, and I can hardly wait to hear it again because I recorded her and she's on fire. There's no other way to say it. And to introduce Winona's video presentation, I want to introduce you to Ken Jones. One of our favorite presenters at Community Church is Kathy Kelly, and she is also the recipient of our annual Sacco and Vanzetti Award in 2019. And Kathy Kelly, I had a conversation with her about Line 3 in Enbridge, and okay. And she said, you should talk to Ken Jones. And I talked to Ken Jones, let's do a program. And Ken said, you don't need to talk to me, you need to talk to Winona. And that's why I would like to welcome you all to welcome Ken Jones, who is going to introduce this video presentation by Winona, and also show us some images as well. Welcome, Ken.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Dean, for inviting me to be part of this. And good morning, everyone. I'm in Asheville, North Carolina, traditional home of the Cherokee. And I had the opportunity a couple months ago to go as part of a CPT team. Maybe you're familiar with Christian peacemaker teams. There were 3 of us who went to Line 3, and we stayed the entire 2 weeks we were there in the Welcome Camp, what's known as the Welcome Camp. There are several camps along the Mississippi and throughout Minnesota that have been struggling to resist Line 3 being built. So we stayed there, and as a way of setting the stage for Winona's talk, what I'd like to do is run through some pictures that I took while there, if my screen sharing will work, and just kind of narrate them quickly and then get out of the way so you can listen to Winona LaDuke and watch her. If you don't know Winona, you will. She's an Anishinaabe leader, has on the White Earth, a reservation there in Minnesota, and has for many years been leading environmental groups and the fight against oil pipelines. She ran for vice president with Ralph Nader back in the day. She's a writer. She's all over YouTube. And if you haven't seen her most recent book, this is it here. Yeah, it was published last year, and it's called To Be a Water Protector. Okay, so I'm going to try to share my screen. And that maybe works. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. All right, then. Let's see. I want to make that a full screen. Hang on a second. Okay, there. So this, what you're looking at here is a picture of the Welcome Center camp from the road where you drive in. And right in front, you can see a fire pit where there was a watch. They had us watch through the night to act as protectors of the water protectors, really. That road goes into the camp. You can get a picture of what the North Woods in Minnesota looks like here. Let's see here. Want to move on to the next slide. There. Whoop, went too far. That one. Okay, well, I'm going too fast here.
Fine.
This is, you just saw a couple of pictures of that front, and you saw the Mississippi River there. And this is there. I'm going to back up for you so you can get a better look. That's as you walk into the camp. There's our center where we circled up and met with each other. On any given time, there were 20 to 30 people there, sometimes more on the weekends. That's the kitchen back there, and where we serve food every day. Pancakes, not pipelines. You see the little turtle there. Cook's name was Turtle. This is the pathway down through the woods where people camped out across the street from where the main camp is. And we camped out down there for 2 weeks, our team of 3. There's the picture I zipped through earlier of the Mississippi, beautiful up there in Minnesota. And there's even a more beautiful picture camped right on that river. And if you're anywhere near there, you have, of course, this affection and love for the environment you're in and for the river, and if you didn't have it before, and you are really appalled by what's happening up there to the water and the river. One of our jobs, the primary job really when we got there, was to act as what CPT does is a company. We stand beside people throughout the world, really, who are struggling with conflict of some kind or another. And in this case, they asked our team to mind this prayer lodge that had been set up right in the path of the pipeline. You can't tell from this picture, but it's right beside the river. And the fire that's going down there was to be kept going 24/7. So we took turns, our CPT team and others, camping near there and sitting there to prevent the pipeline from going through. Didn't work as planned, but that's the way we spent a lot of our time, sort of in prayer, right next to this prayer lodge. There's a better look at the prayer lodge from the other side. You can see some of the tents in the woods set up. Right, if you look away from the lodge, if you look down the path of the pipeline, this is what it looked like. Those wooden boards, those mats, they put down on the ground so that they can run their heavy machinery over it. As it turned out, they didn't dig up that ground because of the prayer lodge there. But I'll tell you what they did do here in a second. Let me show you the other side. If you turned around the other side from the prayer lodge and looked across the river, there's where they were going to continue the pipeline after they drilled under the river, and did, in fact. So you're on both sides, heavy equipment making sounds all through the night. It was kind of horrifying, really, to see that going on in these beautiful woods and next to that beautiful river. I showed you the picture of the camp. What we did when we sat there minding the front gate was often watch trucks, heavy duty trucks roll by. And they were rolling into an area not by the Mississippi, but over by the nearby Willow River, setting up, in this case, I think they're carrying gravel there. Once they dig the ditch, they put gravel on the bed of it to run the pipeline. There was a garden there. I do want to say that that camp, and I think maybe most, if not all of the other camps, were not only resisting the pipeline, but trying to set up a community in a way that envisions the world the way we want it to be. So nonviolence and collaboration with everything and growing food. And so this is a picture of the garden that was right there in the Welcome Center, little geodesic sphere there. Growing food inside also. There was a bigger garden, a community garden that was nearby that they had been working on for months, if not longer. You can see my partners and my CPT partners. On the right is Cliff Kindy, who's been with CPT for many years, and he himself is a farmer, so it was good to have him there. And right next to him is my partner, Melody, who came up with me. Community garden. There was a wedding at the Welcome Center. Speaking of having a community there, people who had long associated with the camp there, and the people in the camp decided to get married. There was a lot of artwork going on, and at one stage we were setting up to do an action. Our camp wasn't so devoted to direct action as other camps were, but a lot of people came, got oriented to what was going on there on line 3 and moved from our camp to other camps. But we did do one action while I was there for the 2 weeks, and this is the prelude to that, where people were painting canoes. Beautiful paint jobs. And this is the action that we were involved in. There was more to the action than this. This was the part that I was involved in. You can see Tanya there in the front canoe. She is a Anishinaabe matriarch who lived right there at the Welcome Center. And what we did was get into the river between 2 drill pads. We're getting ready to drill under the Willow River. And we parked ourselves on that river with our canoes for the best part of the day, something like 8 hours, while other actions, blockade actions to the front gates were going on as well. It was raining, but you know, we were wet, but we were pretty happy to be in that water. And I mean, you can say we shut things down for a day. Actually, it was longer than a day, because what happened during that action was we discovered what is called a frack out, which was a spillage from the drill that went under the river, and it broke into an aquifer, and it spilled a bunch of their drilling fluid into the river, which has toxic things, not good for the river. So we discovered that, and it actually ended up shutting down that particular drill site for about 4 or 5 days. And subsequent to that, other frack outs were found in other rivers throughout the Minnesota area. I think that's as much as I want to share with you, except to say that the result of where we were at that prayer lodge was that surprisingly, almost within a couple of days after we were there, they actually drilled under that matting I showed you, some 70 feet below, under the prayer lodge, under the river, and back out the other side. So they managed to get their pipeline across the river without disturbing the prayer lodge. A lot of people were discouraged that we hadn't stopped it, but you know, the prayer lodge is still there. Prayers are still being offered, even though the water is flowing through the pipe. It's not over there in Minnesota. So I'm going to stop my share there, and that'll give you at least a picture of what one of the camps looked like. And now, Dean, if you want to show that video from Winona, we can appreciate her wisdom about the whole situation there.
Thank you, Ken. Here we go. Let's say hi to Winona. Just a minute.
Okay, I'm gonna record for a little bit, team, so.
Oops, sorry about
Try
that.
to be quiet, no blenders or anything.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay, give it a try. Okay, I need,
Winona, I'll just, somebody else will introduce you, but here we go. Winona, welcome to Community Church of Boston.
thank you. I need to hello, my relatives. You know, I'm honored to be here today with you. I wish I could be in person, and, you know, I just want to say that I'm happy to be able to visit with you, and grateful to the people of your church and a community of Massachusetts, the progressive history that has come out to support us in our battle against fossil fuels industry here in Minnesota. I also want to acknowledge Sacco and Vanzetti. I've known of their history since I was a young woman. You know, my mother was in the International Ladies Garment Workers Union. So I come from a union family that understood the value of union work and the dignity of human beings in the labor force. And so, you know, I want to say, and I'm going to still stand for you know, the same things that we're all standing for today: justice and dignity for all relatives, whether they have wings or fins or roots or paws. Because fundamentally, these are the same battles. These are battles over, you know, for justice, ecological justice or economic justice, human rights justice. So that's why I'm here, because you guys are the cool people in Boston, you know, and I appreciate you. And I want to, you know, just say a little bit of you know, to my relatives out there, the Wampanoag people out there and the other indigenous people, I want to send a greeting. I'm always grateful to be in your territory in person, much better because I get to eat all the good food. Zoom, also good, just to give my greetings and acknowledgement to your land and to my relatives, because as an Anishinaabe person, I am your relative. Our people came from you. We're instructed to follow a shell which appeared in the sky to the food which grows upon the water. That's wild rice, our most sacred food. And so my language is your language, or your work, because your challenge in colonialism is deeper than mine in my territory. You got a lot more years of it. I just read the article about the Tisbury discussion on Columbus Day or not. And I was kind of just astounded that one of the, elders or different, white Anglo-Yankee elders were just, really didn't understand anything about indigenous people, but understood Columbus. And so there's a lot of work to do in our communities to begin the process of kind of really being truthful to who we are and what we're doing here. So I am here because I'm going to talk to you about line 3 and a just transition. And we're all in this together. I mean, the reality is that we all drink the same water and breathe the same air. And what is happening in Minnesota is a crime, and it's a crime that is ongoing. And that crime is Enbridge's line 3. A pipeline that they are trying to, put in and shove down our throats, literally. And my people have for 8 years fought this pipeline. Not my choice to be a pipeline fighter, but this is a bad idea. Now, Enbridge brings in 75% of the tar sands into the United States. And I think what we know is that you don't need tar sands oil. It's the dirtiest oil in the world, and it's extracted from our communities in the north, and it's devastating across the board. What I would say is the dirtiest oil in the world with such a heavy ecological and social impact should not be in our cars, but we all just need to move along, move away from the fossil fuel addictions that we have. Because to me, we're looking at what I would call late stage fossil fuel addiction behavior. And what's that mean? It means you don't got any spurting oil rigs out in Oklahoma anymore. What you're doing is digging, drilling 20,000 feet under the ocean until you get an oil rig problem like in Santa Barbara, and you're digging, or in the Gulf of Mexico, you're doing extreme extraction of fracking, busting up the bedrock of Mother Earth using a bunch of Halliburton chemicals and hope that's going to work out, and what goes down won't come up, which doesn't make any sense. And then maybe we're just doing Arctic extraction or tar sands. This is all like super extreme behavior, which is what addicts do. The harder it is to get your fix, the worse you try for it. And the more, the billions of dollars we're spending defending oil reserves, the military industrial complex is also about oil. So my feeling is that we really need to be the people who move on. In our teachings as Anishinaabe, this is called the time of the seventh fire, where we're told we have a choice between two paths. One path is well-worn and scorched. That's the one we see, and the other one is green. It is green. And that path is not well charted. So I'm talking to you, I'm a community organizer, rural development economist, racer up in northern Minnesota, trying to both be in the center of this resistance to this giant fossil fuel pipeline, and then ask this question of what's our plan? What is our plan? What we're doing? Am I gonna spend the rest of my life fighting rocks and pipes, bad ideas? I spend my whole life fighting stupid ideas. Quite frankly, I probably met Dean Stevens over at the Seabrook Nuclear Power Plant at the Clamshell Alliance gatherings up there in the 70s when I was a student at Harvard. I went up there, I saw, all the cool people up there resisting. That was inspired. The clamshell movement, the anti-nuclear movement formed me. Because I was working on uranium mining as a young woman on the Navajo reservation, and what I know is that there's no safe way to mine uranium. And so no matter what a nuclear industry would say, it's going to be clean and unmetered, and it's the future. That's not true. Every choice that we make in our Wendigo, it's like Wendigo is a cannibal. In our Wendigo economic system, causes more and more extractions, and so I spent a lot of time building alliances in the 80s, in the late 70s between our indigenous communities and the anti-nuclear movement. And the reason that, Seabrook 2 and Vermont Yankee and Mills, I forget the one on the Millstoners thing, like all those guys are like not going forward, or more nuclear power plants isn't going forward is because of people like us, and our resistance. You resist these projects long enough and one day they die. They never say they're sorry. They say it was economically unviable. Yes, that's generally how they approach things. But the longer you resist, the more expensive their projects are, and that's how you defeat bad guys. Is you just keep resisting. That's my experience. Is you just keep resisting, and in the meantime, you also make the next economy. That's what we're doing up here later. So just a little update on the horrible situation of Line 3. They got the pipe in. They say they got oil in it. We don't actually know if they have oil all the way through. And last we heard it was partway through because they still have hemorrhaging aquifers. They pierced an aquifer in Clearwater County right by Itasca Park. And they haven't figured out how to fix that one yet. They're draining, it's like the aquifer is bleeding out millions of gallons of water, drinking water, Then they fracked, they contaminated 28 river crossings with frack out chemicals that they had used for drilling. And in order to drill, because doing super extractive, horrible things takes a lot of fresh water, they had to take water from all of our rivers. They sucked rivers dry. Did I say that? They sucked rivers dry. And they stole water from municipal water supplies at the highest bidder. So Enbridge's oil drilling was done done with the blessings of the Park Rapids City Council, who gave them municipal drinking water. That's what I mean, late stage fossil fuels addiction. Why would you give up your drinking water for a Canadian multinational putting the dirtiest oil in the world and threaten the rest of your water? That's like the crazy stuff that we're dealing with And so 5 billion gallons of water, fracked, busted aquifer. And then let's just talk the arrests. I'm charged in 3 counties in northern Minnesota. 3 counties for being a water protector, for being an Anishinaabe person. But I was joined by a lot of people from Massachusetts, and I want to hold my hands up to you in gratitude for you coming out to stand with this. In the middle of like January, February, like I was out there, I'm very outdoorsy, been out there since December, standing on the front lines. And there were some folks from Massachusetts that got arrested, maybe from New Hampshire too. It was like 7 elders and a piano. I thought that was great. Someone was playing piano right in front of an Enbridge work site. They had a hallway and elders and a piano. I was like, how long did they charge the piano for? But thank you. Thank you, courageous, innovative, cool people from Massachusetts and elsewhere for coming out and making a ruckus with us, because this is your problem too. 900 people arrested. Did I say that? 900 people arrested. And the thing about this is increasingly problematic is not only were we arrested for being water protectors, I've got unlawful assembly. I've got attendance at unlawful assembly, which I'm not sure how you can do both of those things, but you can attend it and get charged that way. I got a lot of trespassing charges on critical infrastructure. And I got, I have a public nuisance charge, which I thought was kind of disparaging. I don't feel like a public nuisance. I feel like Enbridge is a nuisance to the public. But my point is that my charges are just part of this multitude of people being charged. And how did that all happen? One of the things that we're dealing with that is very important for y'all to take a look at is that, let me just get this right. The police were paid for by the multinational corporation. This is a big problem. So look, Canadian multinationals, mining corporations represent about 75% of the mining corporations of the world today. They're basically running roughshod over Central America, all over Africa, installing coups, killing people, all kinds of human rights violations, getting charged in Canadian courts, or indigenous people are just like in Guatemala, in El Salvador, saying no to Canadian multinationals. So what did they do in Minnesota? Rather than face the possible $38 million worth of military charges that they had for Standing Rock, instead they do. They have the Canadian corporation pay for the military. That's what they did. And so far 2.4 million is what we know that they got, but probably more than that. They got what we know is that they paid the police. And so the problem with this is that all the police costs associated with Line 3 were reimbursed by Enbridge. And what that does is it incentivizes repression, because you get more money if you follow around water protectors in their little Priuses or Toyotas or Subarus, telltale cars of water protectors from what I can see. If you follow them around, you profile them and you intimidate them, and then you start charging them for being on the side of the county road. That's what people are being charged with, you know? And so all of that harassment paid for by Enbridge. And so they got more money, the more harassing they did, and now we're all like facing charges in all of these courts up there. So what is wrong with that? Let's say everything. You know, at some level, you're thinking that the police are supposed to protect and serve your community. Now, being the state that George Floyd was murdered in, we know that that doesn't apply to people of color. But in some world like theory, we would think that the police would not be financed by a foreign corporation. That's kind of third world and stuff. Kind of sounds like Canada in Central America. But here it was in northern Minnesota with a lot of indigenous people. So the thing is that this happened in Minnesota, but there is national interest in doing the Minnesota model. I was like, y'all don't want Canadian multinationals financing the police everywhere. That's what's happening. You know, that is totally not only undemocratic, that's like ridiculous in terms of any semblance of a democratic system. Add to that all of these new laws, the ALEC laws, that they're criminalizing people like me, turning it into a felony to express your First Amendment rights when you don't think that a multinational corporation should steal your water. State of Wisconsin now facing Enbridge accelerated project. You know, we have a lot of people that are going to be arrested in Wisconsin. We're going to do our best to head them off there. But my point is that I think everything's getting prostituted to fossil fuel companies in the system. And I think that is really the issue that we got to address. So where we are now, my tribe, most innovative thinkers of all, several years ago passed the rights of wild rice as a part of our tribal constitution, 2018. I was there. And I was so proud of our tribe for recognizing our most significant food as being a sacred being and having the right to exist without contamination, pollution, and such things, right? We passed that. And then, you know, we've been protecting our rights and extending our protection jurisdiction over our sacred manova and our wild rice throughout our territory. And I think it was in 2016 or 2017, the state of Minnesota said, we're not going to make Indians get any more permits for harvesting wild rice in the state. Y'all just keep harvesting. They said, yeah, that's what we're going to intend to do anyway. So, tribe has exercised more and more jurisdiction within our treaty territory, the 1855 treaty territory this is, to protect our wild rice. Well, my tribe sued the state of Minnesota Department of Natural Resources and the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency for their flagrant mismanagement and destruction of wild rice. I mean, why would you issue a permit for 5 billion gallons of water in the worst drought in the history of the state for Enbridge to be able to de-water to put in their pipeline and have enough water for their drills? Gross mismanagement. Same thing with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. Sitting there, I was in the middle of a frack out, standing there looking at this gunk at the bottom of the Willow River in person, sitting there in the river, which is theoretically free speech zone, the river, public waters, right? We would think so. I'm in the middle of the river. I'm like, look, there's a frack out here. The DNR cop, Department of Natural Resources cop, is like, LaDuke, you get out of the river, I'm going to arrest you. I mean, so witnessing a crime, I'm told I'm going to be charged with trespassing for reporting and acting on the crime. Anyway, blessings to Sackle and Vanzetti, because I get y'all. You know, this is the same darn thing. It's like, how did the rights of corporations come to supersede all of our rights? You know, what about the human dignity of the people who live there and the workers and jacked up systems, you know, jacked up systems that are jacked up on fossil fuels? I think it's called regulatory capture. When corporations control your regulatory system, your legal system, your political system, that's what you got. So we're going to keep fighting Enbridge. You know, we don't think it's okay that this third largest corporation in Canada should own the water of the North. Don't own me. Don't own our people. And you know what? That's the 75% of the tar sands coming into the US coming through Enbridge. They go all the way to the East Coast. They're buying up pipeline companies everywhere. You know, for 6 years, I've written letters to Enbridge's board CEO, His name is Al Monaco. I feel like I'm on a personal basis with him. I just write him letters. Dear Al, Winona here. Winona the water protector. I write him these letters and I'm like, you should move along. Invest in some renewables. You know, maybe like clean up some pipes instead of leaving $24 billion worth of old pipes here that we don't know who's cleaning up. What you need is a just transition. But Enbridge doesn't want to do that. They keep just buying more pipelines. And now they're trying to say they're into renewable energy. So look, this is my observation. First, Canadian multinationals should not own us. And the liability of Enbridge is really the liability of fossil fuel culture. I've been around and seen W.R. Grace, and I even saw Union Carbide belly up, right? What happened? Superfund site, Bhopal, can't pay their fees. You know, what do? Can't pay their fines, what do? Bankrupt. Right. Not like not like I was born yesterday, guys. So that's kind of my question is what you doing with these fossil fuel companies who have $24 billion worth of old pipes laying around in the Great Lakes region? Who's cleaning up that mess? The pipes are done. 50-year-old pipes into the Straits of Mackinac. Like, how high are you? These things got to come home. My point is that my problem is also the problem of Boston and everywhere else. You guys got gas mains. I'm surprised the cities don't blow up from all the leaking gas mains and the aging infrastructure. And no one pays attention to infrastructure because we just assume it's going to work. Kind of entitled first world people and all. Well, it turns out that stuff is just like falling apart. And that's why we need real infrastructure. We need to clean up stuff for people. You need a real infrastructure bill that's not for fossil fuel companies. Like who the hell needs a $9 billion pipeline project? That's Enbridge's most expensive tar sands pipeline project in the history. They're going to choke on it. Guarantee you, they're going to choke on it. $9 billion to put in the last tar sands pipeline, right? It's kind of like other unessential infrastructure projects, like the wall. This is like the equivalent of the wall, the northern equivalent of the wall. My personal feeling right now is we need a wall between us and Canada. Because all my problems come from Canada. They don't come from Mexico. I'll keep the Mexicans, Mexican food, all the cool people that are coming across, they're all indigenous. Canadian multinationals, not indigenous. They're the trash of colonialism. That's what they are. You know, they're Wendigo capitalists. And so give me a wall in the north. Let me keep those guys out. So look, my problems are everybody's problems. If we're all the same, we all drink the same water. We all breathe the same air. And what I'm saying is the infrastructure issues of this country are basic issues. Like, I'm not opposed to pipelines, but I want Flint, Michigan to have pipes, right? That's what I want. I want pipes for people, you know, not for multinational corporations to mess stuff up more, right? And so that's this opportunity that we need to keep pushing for, is what infrastructure justice looks like, you know? And I know there's bills in Congress. I'm a big supporter of the squad. Those women got my support 150%, but my point is like, you got to keep struggling for this stuff and you got to keep fighting for it. That's probably the lesson of Sacco and Vanzetti right there. You know, keep up your struggle because power does not concede without struggle. We know that one. And, you know, so let's look at this infrastructure issues and how to transform. The other part of it is, it's like, I'm all ready for the next economy. My relatives, my ancestors talked about a choice between two paths. One well-worn and scorched and the other green. You know what the green path looks like? Organic local food systems. Food that you don't transport, like the shrimp that come out of, where do they come out of? Scotland, deveined in China, shipped to a Costco near you. Wean yourself of that habit. That's a dumb one to have. Eat local, you know, as much as you can. Relocalize your food system. Then when stuff gets shipped around, don't ship it in plastic and don't ship it with fossil fuels. What we need is solutionary rail. I don't know if y'all heard of that solutionary rail. You need an electric train system because that's the most efficient way to move anything. And I was looking at something, a B-1 bomber, how much they spent on a B-1 bomber a couple of years ago was the equivalent of upgrading all the Amtrak. I was like, this is what we've all been saying. You know, you need the military budget for civilian purposes, right? But you need to go beyond just upgrading. You need electric trains and we need renewable energy. But what we don't need to do is enable, Elon Musk to have any more coups in Bolivia. What we need is a just transition that, first of all, addresses our overuse of energy, our inefficiencies. I mean, just imagine. I think Boston's like blowing 25% of oil out, or, your aging pipelines. You know what I'm saying? This is like, we're wasting stuff, we're wasting water, we're wasting oil, wasting everything. They say that we waste 70% of our energy between, 60%, between point of origin and point of consumption. So what's that mean? Why would I want to build an energy economy to fuel that waste? No, we want an efficient energy economy, which is community solar on your house, efficiency, don't do dumb stuff. That's just my statement to everybody, quit doing dumb stuff. And then make the next economy. The last thing I'm going to say about the next economy is hemp. So I'm a hemp farmer. I've been growing for 6 years. I grow fiber hemp. And the goal of my fiber hemp is to turn it into textiles so that the descendants of Sacco and Vanzetti and a bunch of those people can make textiles out of it. We used to have a manufacturing economy in the United States. We used to make stuff here. Now we just buy stuff from China. So how about we rebuild an economy that makes sense, where you can work with textiles that are not made of fossil fuels, because that's what we're doing right now. We're in a totally fossil fuel textile economy. So I'm doing hemp. I'm interested in fiber hemp. I've been working on it, and one day soon I'll be able to give you some canvas. Oh, that's right. The word canvas comes from cannabis. So what if we just did that? And then I'm going to use my byproducts to see if I can work on some installation and build some hempcrete houses for tribal people. And then, and then I heard that what they're looking at is that the hemp itself can be turned into batteries, supercapacitors, from what I understand. That's a miracle. Aside from the cannabis economy, I'm a big supporter of legalization, but the new green revolution, that's what I call it. That's what we call it, the new green revolution. Because it's not just in smoking the herb, it's in making an economy that's based on a post-fossil fuels economy, which has hemp at the center of it. The other thing about hemp, not only does it bioremediate, but it's a carbon sink. And that's what we need right now is to bring, put that carbon back in the soil, because really basic biology class teaches you carbon belongs in soil, not air. That's what we got to do. So listen, that's what we're doing up here. Honor the earth. Our affiliate organizations, Anishinaabe Agriculture, King, we're buying some land. Oh, you guys will like this. Enbridge bought the land on two sides of my organization. They did. Right next to the reservation, they bought the land that surrounded us. I was like, Enbridge, what you gonna do with that? You gonna put a pipe yard in my tribe? Well, anyway, about 3 weeks ago, I messaged the project manager. I used my little sacred cell phone. I'm like, hey, you want to give me that land back? He says, we'll sell it to you. So for $166,000, I'm buying my predator out. I'm going to buy the land around my organization. It's 110 acres. And instead of growing pipes, I'm going to grow corn and hemp, mushrooms, some other cool stuff, feed my community. That's what we're going to do. But that's what the just transition looks like. You got to be innovative. Time for land back is now, especially from predators like Enbridge, right? And then you build the next economy, and that's based on, in our case, indigenous seeds, real old squash, all kind of cool beans, and horse-drawn agriculture. That's what we do. And then we make solar thermal panels here on the reservation. 8th fire solar. Reduce your heating bill by 20%. It's gonna be a cold winter, guys. And your heating bills are gonna double. I know what they say, 50% increase in heating bills. Is that what they said? So time to do cool stuff. Crisis is opportunity. Pandemic is portal. That's what Arundhati Roy says. The pandemic is a portal. I'm saying walk through the portal, walk through clean. Bring the just transition with you and stay strong. I just want to thank you for the opportunity to visit with y'all. And, I would have been there in person, like I said, like the whole idea of your church really resonated with me, coming from where I come from. And so just hands up to you for that, being those principled people. And also for all those arrests people from Massachusetts took out here on line 3. Stay strong. We're fighting them still in Minnesota. The tribal court is hearing the state of Minnesota is ordered into tribal court by the federal courts. And the federal court decision is not down yet on Enbridge. We're going to keep fighting them in every legal and regulatory mechanism and on the ground and in the streets. But what we're going to do? We're going to build the next economy and leave them guys in dust. Because, you don't need solar to power the sludge, those tar sands. What you need is solar for villages. So that's how the future looks, is you make it. Because if you wait for someone else to solve this one for you, we ain't gonna do very well. So listen, y'all, thank you so much, and for everything that we wish.
Thank you, Winona. So beautiful and so powerful. So many great lessons. And the simple ones are the best. Don't do dumb stuff. That's all. Kind of reminds me of this. We have over on the wall a 10 Commandments of the Church of Cannabis. And the first one is, don't be an asshole. Don't do dumb stuff. Do cool stuff. Hey, I want to just make a little quick change in our agenda, just because we have Sabine with a bunch of more images, and she has to leave pretty soon. So Sabine, you are already co-hosted. Will you come on and say hello to us? Sabine is one of several folks who went out to Minnesota to witness and get arrested and do good trouble. Sabine, hello.
Yes.
So
Hi,
nice
can
to
you
meet
hear me?
you. And thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me. Sabine, I'm in Wayland, Nipmuc land, and I'm happy to join my fellow water protectors. I'll go through this swiftly because you've heard so much, and since I didn't know what others would say, there may be some repetition, but sometimes I'm a teacher, repetition is not always bad. So yes, Winona is one of the leaders up in the fight against Line 3, and she's incredible, as you just heard. And they have the indigenous folks have been spearheading this fight with an enormous amount of creativity and resilience that is just absolutely mind-blowing and inspiring. The other woman that stands out is Tara Houska, who is the founder of the GNU Collective. The GNU Collective is an Indigenous women, two-spirit-led frontline resistance to protect our mother, defend the sacred, and live in balance. And their motto is, we stand unafraid, prayers into action. And my friends and I went up to so-called northern Minnesota to help prevent this pipeline. As you can see in this map, the pipeline, the red is what they just built. The black is what was there before. And this was built under very sensitive waters in hundreds of wetlands and waterways and indigenous treaty lands. As you just heard, the wild rice is a very important part of the indigenous economy up there. And of course, it is very sensitive, and spills are not going to be a maybe, but just when. So it will ship 915,000 barrels of tar sands a day. And as you heard, it's one of the dirtiest fuels, and they spend billions on it. And that would be equivalent to about 50 new coal-fired power plants, or 38 million vehicles on our roads, which means it is a carbon bomb just like Keystone XL pipeline. And it was ironic that when we went up there in June, at the same time, or a little bit later, there was a major issue with wildfires just to the north of Minnesota on the Canadian border. And of course, that was throughout the summer. What was most impactful to me, and you heard a little bit about that from Ken, is the unbelievable impact this land has on you when you go up there. It is called the land of 10,000 lakes, and that is what it is. And you saw that in the map, and you see that in this picture. It is absolutely mind-blowingly beautiful and so rich in biodiversity. The Mississippi River was a little brook where we were up there, and and you see butterflies the size of your hand and huge dragonflies, and everything is buzzing with life around there. And so the contrast between that and the Enbridge pipeline was really crass. As she said, they've been fighting tooth and nail for 8 years, first through the courts and still through the courts, and then since December with direct action. And they've been there in the winter with help from allies from around the country. But the indigenous folks really have been shouldering the burden predominantly. And as she said, have already had multiple arrests. Here's the construction. You see how it's going under the river, and they're piping it through the very, very sensitive ecosystems. And the beautiful resistance was really the other thing that struck us when we got there, the enormous creativity, the love for the earth, the love for each other that fueled everyone's resistance, everyone's determination to go through with arrests and whatever they had to face. And it was beautiful, and it was inspiring, and it was painful at the same time. Many of us went up there from from Massachusetts, and also from elsewhere, not just to protest the pipeline, but also everything surrounding the pipeline, including the man camps that are responsible for the missing and murdered Indigenous women. And several people protested that. And as the company started building, the water protectors became more creative and more inventive, and they did not get deterred by where things were. And we had several grandmothers' actions, as you can see here and here, day and night. We had boats, we had, as you heard, a piano, and people really took a lot of risk to try to prevent this pipeline from being completed. And it's important to say that the fight continues. As she said, we're not done. We're never going to be done. When we went up there, there were lots of people in the action that were saying, young people that told me this, when I asked them, so what do you do when you're not protesting? And they said, this is what I do. This is what I do. This is my career. I'm not going to do anything else, because what's the point? And these are the drills that were used, and I call them weapons of mass destruction, right? That's what they are. They are the tools, the weapons that the company has used to violate the beautiful land for profits. And here you see another really amazing action where people really risked a lot of, and they were met with incredible police violence, with torture, with pain control, like weird methods of noise and pain. And some people had their faces paralyzed as a result. It was absolutely horrendous what the police were up to. And as you heard, paid for by Enbridge. As you also heard, the pipeline has now been completed. And so at the moment, the fight continues in the courts. Here's a wonderful treehouse protest that was very, very, that took like 2 or 3 years for them to take down. Sorry, 2 or 3 days. And of course, our president has not made a beep. Even though he made this beautiful words in his inauguration speech, he has not made any move towards protecting the water, towards supporting the protesters. The only people up there were the so-called squad, and we should all send a thank you letter to Ayanna Pressley, who was one of them, who went up there and spoke publicly and in support of the water protectors and the treaty rights that were violated. And as you heard, Enbridge has already been fined $3.32 million for infractions during the construction of this. So it is already clear that they are the real criminals in this act, right? But instead, they are cooperating, or the police is cooperating with them. The police is being paid for by them. And the water protectors actually sued against this particular attempt to intimidate them and won. So the police was not allowed to continue to blockade that camp, but someone made a very creative cartoon here from showing, the continuity of policing of indigenous people on their own land. In our action, there was a young man who simply stood in the ditch and shouted, "Fuck the Enbridge Corporation," and he was arrested, and he was then judged by the judge and spent 20 days in jail for literally for saying that. And that shows you, and this is what he wrote in response, we shouldn't be surprised that the state has given me this egregious sentence. They aim to scare us. Don't be intimidated by the state. Take a step back, get grounded, and think about those who won't hesitate to keep taking action. My friends with privilege and resources, we know frontline indigenous activists are taking the brunt of the state's oppression. That's who I'm thinking about. Be ready, get organized, and don't leave anybody behind. Solidarity with all defendants and those inside. So what is needed now, and I would ask you to take screenshots or write down the to-do list. We still need criminal lawyers to assist, because as you heard, there's 900 arrestees, about 100 of them have felony charges, just like myself. I was charged with felony theft with now up to 5 years max in prison and $10,000 fine maximum. And there's dozens of us, and hundreds with misdemeanor and gross misdemeanor charges. You can help with donation. There's a Stop Line 3 bail fund. There's a Center for Protest Law and Litigation that funds the movement lawyers that help with the litigation. There's a Line 3 Legal Defense Fund through Pipeline Legal Action Network plan that funds the defendant mutual aid costs associated with court. And that's spearheaded by our friend Marla Markham, whom you all, I'm sure, know from her time in Boston at Better Future Project. And there's also a way to directly support frontline groups. If you wanted to, you could use Venmo, just don't use the word bail anywhere. And there's also a fund to support others held long-term in the jail in Aitken County, because as the GoFundMe page says, all prisoners are political prisoners out here. There are other actions that you can take. I suggest you go to stopthemoneypipeline.com/line3. There's emails you can write, there's calls you can make, there's calendars you can jam. So this is ongoing. And there is an action next Friday, October 29th, downtown Boston. It begins at 3:45 p.m. near Liberty Mutual in Boston at 165 Berkeley Street in the Back Bay. And there's going to be a march from Liberty Mutual to Chase Bank in downtown crossing. I made a picture of the route. So this is a youth and indigenous-led action next Friday, October 29th in the afternoon, and it is a global action. So we are part of, in Boston, we are part of a global initiative that day. So if you can, come. Our old people's job is to show up in support of the young and the indigenous folks. So if you are able, COVID restrictions, of course, apply, and everyone should come. There's an ongoing action also outside the White House right now, where 5 young people are in a hunger strike. I posted the action kit up here. I can also put all the links in the chat when I'm done. They need help. They need their action to be called out. And we all need to make sure that everyone knows about it. And finally, I just want to say we're not alone in this, right? This is a global fight. And I think that's something that is heartening. And we also know that that is the only way we can really solve climate change, because there's not gonna be a way for one nation to solve it. And as a German, I want to say that rich nations are not immune, and there is no vaccine against the climate crisis. So thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Marvelous.
Whoops, I was muted. Thank you so very much, Sabine. We have, again, a very full program and just such a wonderful line of guests. Maybe we could get a Magpie song in here, followed by Michele, who's joining us from Duluth and a long time involved in this struggle. But let's hear from Greg and Terry. How about?
Thank you so much, Dean. Everything Winona said, we've been working on since 1980s and beyond. But we wrote this song in 2008 for an organization called Oil Change International, and it's to say their cause.
Oil Change International is certainly opposed to Line 3. Oil Change International is an organization dedicated to trying to break the corrupting grip of oil profit money on governments.
All over the world.
All around the world. Obviously, you just keep hearing it over and over again through everything that was just been said from Sabine, thank you very much, and also from Winona, that it's all about money. It's all about money. Sorry.
Follow the money, follow the money.
Our addiction to oil is at the core, guzzling and guzzling more and more. We keep on drilling to the ends of the earth.
How many barrels is a human life worth? How long will it take for us to see somebody owns the powers that be? Follow the money, follow the money.
Nigeria
to Kazakhstan. Follow the money from the tanker boats to the halls of Congress where it buys the votes. Follow the money till it makes you sick. You slip and you slide on a thick oil slick. Follow the money, follow the money.
Which politicians stand to gain with big oil money in their campaign? They give them big tax break subsidies.
Our pockets are empty and we're on our knees. BP and Halliburton don't have to comply. They got the very best Congress oil money can buy. Follow the money, follow the money. Follow the money from the oil can, from Iraq, Nigeria to Kazakhstan. Follow the money from the tanker boats to the halls of Congress where it buys the votes. Follow the money from where it's spent right to the office of the president. Follow the money, follow the money.
It's time for all nations
to rearrange. It's time for a global oil change. To save this planet, it's not too late. It's time for separation of oil and state. Follow the money, follow the money. Follow the money to solar power, free energy, every day light out. Follow the money to power that's green. We don't mean the oil dollar machine. Follow the money from the halls of state. The power of oil gotta separate. Follow the money. Follow the money. Follow the money from the oil can. From Iraq, Nigeria, to Kazakhstan. Follow the money from the tanker boats to the halls of Congress where it buys the votes. Follow the money till it makes you sick. Slip and you slide on a thick oil slick. Follow the money. Follow the money. Follow the money. Follow the money.
Thank you, Magpie. Thank you so much.
Wonderful.
This is just so rich for me. We have several more people to acknowledge, but I want to, by way of introduction of Michele, I just want to say something. 2 weeks ago, we had Louise Half Sky Dancer, Poet Laureate of Canada for 2021. Native American, Native Canadian, First Nations poet who was our first program for this season. She had a little bone to pick with the Catholic Church, which is that that she had to go to the residential schools when she was a child that are the same ones where they found all the bodies, and that are just such a focus on the horrific genocide, not only of Canada, but of the United States. And in hearing that, you know, I just remembered my own experience, which is people ask me, what religion are you, Dean? And I blurt out, I'm a Quaker Unitarian Zen Muslim Jutheist. But when I'm in El Salvador, I'm very Catholic. And you know why? Because they went through the wilderness of war, and their faith led them through the wilderness. And when hearing Louise Half, my response is those people who I know so well over 30 years of traveling there, and I'm going there next Wednesday, taking a small group, and I do that by way of introducing Michele, who's part of another beautiful golden gem of Roman Catholicism, which is the Catholic Worker Movement. And Michele is a leader of the Catholic Worker House in Duluth. I also mention Monsignor Romero. There's a photograph of him back here on our altar somewhere from El Salvador. Anyway, Michele has been involved in this Enbridge struggle against the pipeline for many years, and we're so glad to welcome you here, Michele. Unmute yourself and say hello to our community. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that introduction. I can't think of a more appropriate thing to follow than that song, Follow the Money. Because I think that's a lot of what I wanted to kind of offer here. Yes, I am part of the Catholic Worker Movement. We are not part of the Catholic Church, the institutional church. We are not under the auspices of the Catholic Church. Our principles are based on Catholic social justice teaching, which is basically the Sermon on the Mount and the works of mercy. The works of mercy there are many of them. One of them is, when I was sick, you cared for me. And that's kind of how I see our relationship to our Mother Earth. She's very sick right now, and it's our responsibility to care for her, recognizing her as our mother, as our relative. That is something that the Catholic Church did not teach me, and that most Christian religions do not teach. We don't have that creation story. Our creation story is more of, we are in dominion over these gifts that were given to us by God, that are our resources, and at best we're taught to use them wisely and to be respectful and care for them. responsibly, and at worst we're told that we have the right to exploit them because then we can use them to glorify God by our presence as the two-legged at the top of the pyramid here, and that by using things to make us more prosperous or to have more is a way of glorifying God. This is a kind of warped, very warped story that we've been given. Over the time that I've been working with and participating in the Line 3 resistance, I have come to really hear the indigenous creation story. What they have known all along, what we have not, is that all of these things are our relatives. These are not things, these are living beings. The wind, the sun, the water, the things that crawl, the beings that fly, the beings that walk on four legs, the microorganisms. These are all living things that glorify God. Actually, the lowly worm glorifies God better than most of us humans do, and they have that within their right, just as a living being that they do that, and so these are some of the things that I've come to learn and hear in this struggle against this pipeline. And no, it is not over. It's far from over, because it's really more than a pipeline. And that's what I've come to learn. So I just want to go back a little bit to the beginning of my involvement. Was in 2015, actually, when Honor the Earth, which, led by Winona, was organizing in various places around northern Minnesota, and helping us to learn about what this pipeline, to educate ourselves, and to get us ready to address in public hearings our opinion as a member of the public. We didn't have to be we didn't have to be experienced in anything. We didn't have to be expert witnesses. That came later. All we were asked to do was to educate ourselves about this pipeline, what effect it would have on our on all of these natural so-called resources. Again, they're not resources; they are our relatives. But this is how our culture speaks of these things. So anyhow, I did this, and with lots of other people in the Duluth area. There were 8 of these hearings, public hearings, that were heard by an administrative judge, who would take all of our opinions and then make a recommendation based on all of what she heard in these 8 counties, and then bring that to the Public Utilities Commission. When they were then to make their decision on whether or not they would give them the certificate of need and the route and the permission to go ahead with this project. Well, 73,000 people spoke out at these hearings, and 68,000 of them said no. We did not want it. And that's about 94% of the people who showed up in 8 different counties from all different backgrounds said no. Our voices were silenced. Enbridge later on referred to how this was the most public decision that they had made this available and made it easy for the public to come and speak out, and we did. But it didn't matter what we said. And all it was that we showed up, and they used that to say this was a good thing that they did. That was public. They had a good public input. They didn't care what the result of the public input was. Later, we went to the evidentiary hearings. That's where people who were expert witnesses, both for and against, testified before the Public Utilities Commission. This was painful to watch. I watched the tribes, the lawyers from the different tribes speak about what this would do to their land, to the wild rice, to the Minoman, to their culture, another form of genocide. I watched young people, they were high school students. They schooled themselves in law and in climate law. And they were experts because they will be the ones that will inherit this mess. They were 16, 17-year-olds. They poured their hearts out in front of these public utility commissioners, begging for them to not let this happen. There were scientists there that were pouring their hearts out. And we watched this, and obviously they had the Enbridge witnesses come and speak for, why this is a good thing. And we were lied to over and over and over again, and everybody knew it. Yet it was almost as if it was a done deal. I think it was a done deal, because what I think happened here is when you follow the money trail, you go back and you find that there were deals made behind closed doors that have been grandfathered in and that we cannot get out of. So we have Biden, who comes into office and who makes these wonderful statements, and there's some things that there's just nothing that he's going to be able to do about. Who made these deals? Were they Democrats? Were they Republicans? Who knows? I don't know. I don't know who they all were. But if we follow that back, we will find out who made those deals. And why is that important? Because it will happen again and again until the last drop of these so-called extractive resources can be taken and made as a profit for someone, whether it be a multinational corporation, whether it be a domestic corporation. We have allowed our laws, our Constitution, to be changed to favor them. And somehow if we say we live in a democracy, we're going to have to figure out how to stop this, how to take it back. And that's where I kind of come out with where it goes, where I hope we will take this. Is I heard a lot of people say at the beginning of this gathering, and I've heard it in other places, we admit that we're living on stolen land. We acknowledge that we're living on stolen land. To me, that's acknowledging guilt. It's not reparation. And I think, Dean, you started out by saying that we know we have to go further than just admitting that we are guilty of living on stolen land. We have to find a way to give it back. And that, I think, is very much of the non-native, non-indigenous people's responsibility, is we have to give it back. One of the ways that I think that, in a symbolic but in a kind of a real way, I tried to do this in 2019 myself after going to these evidentiary hearings. Let me just go with that. After going to these evidentiary hearings, I was sitting at the very end, at the last one, where they had already made the decision that they would give them the certificate of need. Now they were deciding, the commissioners, after all of that testimony, now they were deciding where they were going to give it, what route they were going to give. There were 4 routes that they could have taken. And one of them would have been a southern route, which would have gone through many farmlands, primarily white-run farms. Very rural, in Minnesota, we're a pretty white state. And so they denied that. Instead, they put it through the route that would have the most water crossings, the most wild rice beds that would be at risk, the most wetlands crossings that would be at risk, 22 river crossings, and 2 of them were the Mississippi. 22 river crossings. That's where they went through. My friend from Fond du Lac was sitting next to me, and she asked me, what am I hearing? Because she was in another space at this point, in another world, in tears. And I told her, Deb, it doesn't look good. It looks like they're going to go through Fond du Lac. And she told me to stop talking. And so I did. And later she told me that the reason she wanted me to stop talking was because she didn't want the ancestors to hear this. That's how deep their relationship goes. She didn't want the ancestors to hear this. And so I started to think, what can I do that will make the ancestors would want to hear? What can I do that would make God smile? What can I do that the angels and the saints might find a way of being with us? And so myself and 3 other Catholic workers decided to do a valve turning action. We turned the oil off on line 3 and line 4 at a safety block valve site just outside of Grand Rapids, Minnesota. That was a symbolic yet very real action for that moment in time. We gave that land back to the people who can manage it best, because they have a relationship with that land and with their relatives that my culture, my government does not have. And so that's where I think we are now, is in hearing Winona, listening, and all the time I spent. I lived at 2 camps. I lived at the Welcome Water Camp for a while. I lived down by that lodge that you saw pictures that Ken took. We had standoffs with the police, reading to them the letter that the 1855 Treaty Authority wrote, stating that to harass anyone practicing their religious rights in that prayer lodge, or to harass anyone for exercising their treaty rights in that area, was a federal crime. And by those workers coming down, threatening with their drills to cross the Mississippi right where that lodge was, it was a violation, a federal crime. And so as we stood around that lodge, and we stood in front of that lodge, as they came down, we read that letter to them. I read that letter to them over and over again in hopes that they would back down. And they did. We had 8-hour standoffs, and they backed down, because that is something that they're not accustomed to. They're not accustomed to people using the law in the way that it was intended to be used. And they tried very hard to turn that day into a riot. They tried to trigger us to react with violence, because that is what they're very much used to. And they had the paddy wagons, and they had that whole police force ready to come down. And as they read that this was an unlawful assembly, I read that what they were doing was a federal violation. After that day, they backed down that day. But what they did was they found a way to get, actually, I was going to say around it, under it. They drilled underneath us. And the monitor that they had, the tribal monitor, cultural monitor, had designated 40 feet above, 40 feet to both sides, and 40 feet below that lodge to be protected under the 1855 Treaty Authority letter. They went 60 feet below. That's how they got around it. That's how they got under it. They did this at Standing Rock also. So we should have learned, but we didn't. Would that have stopped them? Probably not. Like I said, it seems that there have been deals made long before that have grandfathered this in. No matter what we did, wasn't going to stop it. So I don't find that that's been a hard lesson for many people, and it's disappointing. But it's not over, not by a long shot. And so I really do think that in watching how this has unfolded over these years, that the people who have the best ability to govern and to be stewards of all of this and all of their relatives, for all of us, are the indigenous people. They understand the language. They understand that relationship. And I believe this is happening all over throughout the United States. I mean, I do remember not that long ago, there was, under Trump, there was an attempt to take away the land and to remove the people in the Massachusetts area, the indigenous people of the Massachusetts area. I don't remember the name of their tribe, but they were fighting that because they were trying to give this away to a multinational corporation to continue with the exploitation and the extrapolation of profit-making resources for them. And that's, so if there is anything going on in your communities that's smack of this, we really need to educate ourselves, and we need to work very directly with the indigenous leadership of that area and figure out a way to give it back for real. So that's where I see things will continue going, at least for me. I was involved in a number of cases there, like Winona. I think we have we have the same case, actually. One of our cases, and many right now are facing the court proceedings and the hearings, and I have a number of them coming up. I've been jailed for one, and I think that will continue to unveil some of the corruption that happened at that level with the police forces and with the paid security, the Enbridge paid security, and how they corrupted and co-opted county sheriffs who had taken a pledge and were elected to take care of their people, not a foreign corporation pipeline. So that, I think those things will continue to unfold, and hopefully we will learn just how far, where this corruption leads to, and how to get rid of that, and then how to move on in a healthier way. So thank you for the music, and for the footage that both Ken and I'm sorry, I'm blanking on her name. The pictures, the beautiful pictures. Sabine, yes. I'm not a good techno person. I barely get this part. So thank you for showing that, because really that's what we're, that river, those wetlands, that's what that's the voice that we're trying to raise. And so thank you.
Michele, thank you so much. It occurs to me that we're hearing from all these places, Minnesota, North Carolina, and that we also have some folks from right here in Boston who we would love to hear from. Kathy Hoffman, longtime activist on so many fronts, Cambridge Peace Commission, El Salvador Sister Cities, I can't even begin to name them. And now on this pipeline struggle, and maybe has some words for us on some actions that are upcoming right here in Boston. And maybe after that, we'll hear a song from Greg and Terry. Does that sound okay? Hi, Kathy.
Hi, Dean. I had been feeling at a certain moment the kind of fast-paced blood running of like, oh wait, there's so many people here. This is going to be like so crazy. And now, as I have slowed down and settled in, I feel really teary and honored to be in the company of those who have already spoken. I just want to say, obviously, shout out to Winona, but Michele, your action in valve turners is powerful, and that taking that level of risk to make that statement, I bow before you, as well as your extraordinary words about connections, spiritual connections that you so beautifully spoke about. So thank you for that. And Sabine didn't exactly mention that the reason she's facing a felony theft charge is that they apprehended that big drill bit on its way to be put into implementation. They sidelined it off the road and then attached themselves to it. So also a rather bold action that she and an African-American woman who's also an activist named Erica took together. So I'm touched. And Dean, we've been doing this a long time, and there's a lot of other faces in this group. So thank you for letting me be part of it. I am from Cambridge, but I am currently right now in Wellfleet, Massachusetts, which is Wampanoag territory. And Michele, those are the people that Trump tried to decertify, who have successfully thwarted that. I'll say just a couple of points about the effort that I was part of. I joined a group of mostly women, mostly older people, who we called ourselves the Mayflies, because the Mayflies help to regenerate, although they don't live very long, but they are an ecological force. And we went in May to Minnesota, drove out together. We were from Connecticut and Western Mass and Massachusetts, and 6 women and 1 man, Alex, who was willing to join us in that. And we went out and stayed at the GNU camp, which Sabine already mentioned is led by Two-Spirit and Indigenous women. And there are no photos of the GNU camp because of issues around security culture. You can't take photos. It's also true that each of the many camps, and because of the way that Enbridge's crafty strategy, unlike in West Roxbury, where we tried to stop that pipeline, where they started at one point and then moved it along, Enbridge had multiple places where they were setting up pump stations, et cetera, all simultaneous. So the camps and the resistance was over 200 or 300 miles of distance. And so these camps that people have are hours and hours apart. And GNU, of those 800 or 900 arrests, GNU really took the leadership around direct action as the sort of heart and soul of their identity. And most, I don't know, a lot of those actions were designed by people who then were in relationship to GNU. I will not say they were orchestrated by GNU, because that would lead to some legal conspiracy charges, which I would certainly never endorse. So anyway, when we were there, 2 things I would like to say about it. One is that the action we ended up taking place was blocking what's called a man camp in Bacchus. And that the man camps are these centers where people come. Sometimes people stay there, but it's where all the men who come from out of town, and most of them come refuel. There's food, there's stuff that for them to sustain themselves. That's where they get their equipment. And every time a man camp is established anywhere, whether it's this pipeline or any other, the rates of violence towards women in the immediate area go up about 40%. And this notion, which there, everyone, it's a slogan. I mean, to say it's a slogan, missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people. Like, we've learned that language. There, it's just like everybody knows that, MMIW. It's like, it's because the experience of women being abducted, being trafficked, disappearing is commonplace. Everybody that we met who was Indigenous knew somebody who had disappeared or been murdered in relation to these pipelines and the utter disregard for Indigenous women. So we were delighted that the choice for our object had a relationship to stopping the pipeline because it was the workers, but it was also highlighting a man camp on what happened to be the National Day of bringing attention to murdered and missing Indigenous women, Two-Spirit people. The second thing I want to say is about the intergenerational experience of this particular effort. We were sort of called, when we first arrived, the Golden Girls, and we arrived and we all came prepared for direct action. Many of us have been involved with civil disobedience efforts for decades and decades. And those of you who know that most of my work has been training people around CD trainings and arrests. But we were like, well, we can't actually do an action on the ground because we can't actually get up. Some of us, we have bad knees, And so they designed an action of bringing out lawn chairs for us, which would block the gate. But there was some sense about, we walked into a camp, which was mostly young people, and mostly people who'd been there for a long time. And Native-led, also people from Puerto Rico, brown people, as well as a lot of young, unbelievably courageous, dedicated young white men and women. And so there was a little kind of skepticism, let's just say, about who are you? And then as we designed the action together, and they were like, well, this is going to be symbolic. There's another exit. And we're like, oh, no, we're not actually interested in the symbolic action. We're interested in shutting down this man camp. And it's like, well, you may have to lock down to equipment and things like that to block both entrances. It's like, well, that'd be fine. And so we planned this together, and we listened to their stories, and they were really interested about our stories. And by the end, there were 14 of us who took part in this action inside cement, big pieces of cement. Some of Sabine's photos were of our group, and a group of us in these lawn chairs, which then got used by Winona. Those lawn chairs have gone on to have a legacy of their own. But as we participated in it, a number of the young people in the camp were like, oh, if you're going to do that, we'd like to do it too. We didn't think we actually could do that, but watching you do it, we can. And the sense of these intergenerational bonds that got created by the time we came back to the camp after spending the night in jail, in a very processed and orderly arrest situation, which took a long time, but I think they were there for training purposes. So it was done really without much of the brutality that other people experienced. But by the time we were back in the camp, we were the badass women from Boston. And we had fallen in love with each other across 4 or 5 decades of age. And so that connection that was made has continued ever since those of us have returned back to where we are. And when we call and say, how are things at the camp? They say, we miss you. When are you coming back? And part of it is the sense of, and so some of us, Kate Donnelly and I went back in September to revisit and check in with people in GNU. And part of what we encountered was enormous grief, because these young people thought with their strategies they would stop this pipeline. They really believed it. And I'm not sure without that energy of belief, they would have done all of what they did. I don't know. But as elders, we were able to welcome that grief, to name that grief as love and honoring, that you don't grieve what you don't care for. And also to share our own griefs about the things that we have been a part of that were said to be impossible, some of which we changed, some of which we didn't. And so we helped support a family of care and justice, I think. And so I just want to encourage the elders in this group to persist, because the young people need us and we need them. And then the last thing I want to just say, which everyone else has said, is this is still going on. Tara Houska has bought property in northern Minnesota for a kind of communal living area as well as training center. Several of the young white people that we met and brown people that we met are creating houses in Duluth. Michele, one of them is going to be in Duluth, one of them in Minneapolis, because there are hundreds of people now being processed in court. Some of them will go to jail, some of them will not. But these people want to create spaces so those folks are not forgotten and they have places to stay. So for me, it was a cherished opportunity to be midst that kind of community of values, just as it has been to be in this community. So thank you.
Kathy, thank you for that. And all of you, we stand on so many shoulders of people whose names we don't even know. And so many people have died trying to protect people all over the world, like Ken Saro-Wiwa, the Ogoni people. He fought against Shell Oil Company, and he and 9 other people were hung for that. They were actually hung for trying to stop Shell Oil Company from destroying the Ogoni land. And there's so many people whose names we'll never know, including all the ones we're seeing today, which just always moves my heart, that are continuing these actions. Back in the early 90s, we had the opportunity to work with our friend, the lawyer Diane Kern, who helped actually be representative of the Dene people, the Navajo. And they were losing their water rights to fracking radioactive mines on their tribal lands, on their sacred lands. So we were invited with the elders to listen to what they were going through and to write a song about it. Well, it took years before we finally got the song together. Sometimes they don't come like a water from a faucet. But this is called Water is Life, and many years later, we have the Water is Life struggle at Standing Rock and the continued struggle.
Here we make the connection between all the waters of the planet. They're all tied together. The ocean is tied to Minnesota. In fact, Mini Wichoni, which means, of course, water is life, the name of the state, Minnesota, is actually from the Dakota Minnesota, which means waterfall. There's hardly a state in the country that has more water and more life-giving water than the state of Minnesota.
So this song is dedicated to all the First Nations who we've worked with over the years, protecting sacred sites, water, and the earth.
Mother Ocean nourishes me at full moonlight tide at the edge of the sea. Water is life. Water is life. Mother Ocean nourishes me at full moonlight tide at the edge of the sea. Water is life. Water is life. Sing along with you if you like. Mother Ocean nourishes me at full moonlight tide at the edge of the sea. Water is life. Water is life. Mother Ocean nourishes me at full moonlight tide at the edge of the sea. Water is life. Water is life. Standing on this rocky shore, something holds my eye on that perfect far distant line where water meets the sky. I don't need a mighty ship sailing across the sea. 4 fathoms deep within I know. What do you mean to me? Mother Ocean nourishes me at full moonlight tide at the edge of the sea. Water is life. Water is life. Mother Ocean nourishes me at full moonlight tide at the edge of the sea. Water is life. Water is life. Out on the wide Pacific, under the sun's relentless glow, your waters rise up to the skies where western winds will blow. Those clouds enshroud my mountaintop, feed the forest with their rain. Then it runs down to the rivers and back home to you again. Mother Ocean nourishes me at full moonlight tide at the edge of the sea. Water is life. Water is life. Mother Ocean nourishes moonlight tide at the sea. Water is life. Water is life. I'm gonna lay my body down on the salt sea sand and let the waves wash over me, a foam running through my hand. Mother Ocean nourishes me at full moonlight tide at the edge of the sea. Water is life. Water is life. Mother Ocean nourishes me. Moonlight tide, the edge of the sea. Water is life. Water is life. Everything I am and everything I need, I know it's true, it comes from you. Water is the seed, little Mother Ocean planet in a universe so wide. We've got to rise up like the moon and try to turn the tide. Mother Ocean nourishes me at full moonlight tide at the edge of the sea. Water is life. Water is life. Mother Ocean nourishes me
life. Water is life. Water is life. Water is life. Water is life.
Oh, that's beautiful. Greg and Terry, Magpie, joining us. Such beautiful songs you've given us to embellish and beautify this beautiful event today. I want to recognize two more people who are with us. We stated a couple years ago that we had this challenge to turn our 5-story building here in Copley Square into a model of energy efficiency and state-of-the-art example for the rest of the city of Boston on how to heat and air condition and make comfortable the attendees and the stakeholders in a building. To help us with that, we received the incredible support and help of something called the Green Committee of the Neighborhood Association of the Back Bay, which consists of some building owners and some architects and a certain angel of a person named Jacqueline Royce. Jacqueline has been on the forefront of what we're talking about right here, of a struggle to keep a pipeline from coming in to the Back Bay, basically to feed a huge skyscraper of a building that's nothing but Trumpian multi-million-dollar condominiums, and it's a horrendous thing. Jackie, who is our environmentalist elder of the Back Bay, was out every Wednesday for years protesting a pipeline construction, and we recognize you, Jackie, and we thank you for everything you've done to help us on that path of turning this building into something really green and really amazing. We've already installed a whole new heating and air conditioning regimen, and we're on our way to finding grant money to help us with replacing our windows and doing a whole bunch of other things. So thank you, Jackie Royce, who's with us here today. The other person I wanted to acknowledge and maybe give us a couple of words. We're already at 1:04, so we're past time. But what's time to a bunch of activists, you know, who just want to figure out how to change the world in 2 hours or less? Forget that. Alan Clemence, are you here? Alan has a lot to say about the main aspect of this, which is the Enbridge pipeline through Maine, crisscrossing Maine with gas pipeline and oil pipeline. Alan, if you are there and want to just say a few words, I will mention to you, Alan, that Winona was very, very curious and eager to find out more about actions against Enbridge in Maine, and she is actually speaking at Bates College tomorrow night, Monday night, in Lewiston, and wanted input about that. And maybe I can give you her email address and you can be in touch with her. I don't know if you'll be able to reach her or not at this point. But thanks for joining us from way up north of Bangor. And the floor is yours, Alan, if you want to join us. You're muted so far. Not yet. Sound? No sound yet. There. Yes? You're unmuted. Can we hear you? I guess we still can't hear you, Alan. Up.
There I am.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Go
Great.
ahead.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I have a couple of comments to make about Enbridge and tar sands in general. as Winona pointed out, and I want to thank our guests, just an amazing presentation. And Dean, thank you, amazing program today. As Winona pointed out, Enbridge is buying up in the last couple decades. They've purchased many smaller pipeline companies, including in Maine, Spectra Energy, which was beyond Maine, but Spectra Energy was the 77% owner of the Maritimes and Northeast pipeline, which links Nova Scotia, the gas fields offshore Nova Scotia, to Boston, basically, southern New England, Drake. And so they bought that. They completed that purchase, I think, in 2017. But anyway, just speaking about tar sands in a general sense, I mean, tar sands, as other people have said, it's the dirtiest form of fossil fuel on the planet. It's like bad coal. I mean, it's really bad, and it's not petroleum. It's bitumen. It has the wrong hydrocarbon ratio. It has 15% too much carbon in it to make it feedstock for refineries. So, as many people that know about tar sands are aware, they take out that 15% carbon, and it becomes this substance called pet coke, which is this filthy pure carbon that I believe also gets burned in like coal plants or something like that, similar to coal. But all these various steps create a whole other energy footprint to tar sands, along with its extraction as well. It has to be sort of like melted to turn it into something that they can put in a pipeline and can use, which has its own waste products, square miles of tailings ponds in Alberta. It's just filthy. There's nothing good to say about it, as most of us know. But what I want to say about this is that it's everybody's fight. It should be that it's actually a fairly vulnerable industry or component of the fossil fuel industry, because it's just so burdened with liabilities, carbon liability at every level. And so one of the reasons that pipelines and tar sands are so focused on by the industry, fossil fuel industry in general, is that because they're on land, and they're moving away in many ways to offshore energy, very expensive offshore, ocean-based systems, certainly, at least in the northern latitudes, not so much in the southern latitudes, but there's a whole drive in Wall Street's financing of fossil fuel projects to predict the risks and the losses, and they just want certainty in an industry that has inherent uncertainties. So the reliance on pipelines is one of those question marks that reduced greatly with that infrastructure in place. And again, being on land is better than being in the ocean. So that's one of the reasons why they focus so much on the industry focuses on tar sands and likes it so much, because as dirty and as awful and obscene as it is, the financial aspects of it are fairly predictable. We need to change that. We need, as activists or caring people, that's what we need to put pressure on. And everyone in the world, certainly in North America, and certainly in the United States. So just a little note that in the late 90s or mid 90s, maybe, Canada, they've known about the tar sands for centuries, but in the late 90s, Canada and the mining interests, the mineral interests in Canada, the oil companies and mining interests, they went to great effort to convince the International Energy Association, or whatever it is, to accept their bitumen reserves, their tar sands reserves, as petroleum, because up until that time it wasn't. They considered it something else, and that had a huge effect on their ability to finance, get money and investment for these things. I just want to throw that out there. There's a lot of information on Wikipedia, and we really all should educate ourselves. but anyway, so the Line 3 pipeline, and just an amazing resistance, that has taken place. And I'm so glad to hear about it and have it as part of our church today. But that line 3, is part of a greater Enbridge network, and it's like a trunk line to bring bitumen, basically liquid tar sands, to the east, and that's the eastern refineries in Canada and the refineries in the Great Lakes area of the United States, and Canada, of course, too. So the capacity of the current system in Line 3 is was said today, is like 915 or 930,000 barrels per day. That's an amazing amount of tar sands, and I think right now that's probably about half or something of the overall production, or maybe a little less than half. I know they're trying very hard to get to 2 million barrels a day of production there. I'm not sure if they're there yet or not. But anyway, so a typical large refinery, when in the industry it's considered a large refinery, is 300,000 barrels or more. So that's enough oil to supply 3 large refineries. And there really aren't any large refineries in the Great Lakes area that are that big, as far as I know. They're in the 200,000s, I think, but most are under 300,000. So the purpose of that is to serve multiple refineries, and as well possibly export as well, but I'm not sure about that. So the biggest refinery in Canada is the Irving Oil Refinery in New Brunswick. It's in St. John, New Brunswick, about 50 miles east of the Maine border. It's not far. And that refinery actually serves Boston and southern New England, New York City. It's a huge refinery. They get some of their oil from offshore Newfoundland. They get North Dakota oil by train. To my knowledge, they're getting some tar sands oil also by train, but I really don't know what the mix is. That can't be accurate. But I just assure you that Canada's largest oil refinery would love to have connected by pipeline, be part of the Alberta tar sands. And I can also assure you that they've got some plan in mind. I don't know what it is, but they do have a plan to make that happen. Over the last 10 years, they have talked about an oil pipeline that went around the Maine border, up basically in the St. Lawrence Valley, and then down through New Brunswick. But it's almost like from Montreal. But that really is a very odd technological solution, expensive also. So in Maine here, we're assuming that they want to cross the state somehow, from Montreal. One of their, I think it might be Line 9 that goes to Montreal, I'm not sure. But from Montreal, basically to St. John, New Brunswick. And the big question is, how will they do that? And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I will tell you that it appears at this time that what they will do is convert the existing gas pipeline to tar sands. That's what they would like to do. I won't say that's what they are going to do. I don't know. It's certainly a strong possibility that they will try to convert that pipeline to tar sands. And there already is a pipeline to Portland from Montreal, or vice versa. It's the port of Portland going to Montreal historically. But there's actually two pipelines, oil, and there's also a gas pipeline too. There's a series of pipelines, all owned by Enbridge. And so if they were to do that, very briefly, what they would need to replace part of that gas pipeline. So building a new gas pipeline would be much easier than building a tar sands pipeline across Maine. And they know that, we all know that, and it's probably not likely that they would try to build a dedicated oil pipeline across Maine. I'll briefly say, I know a lot of information about this. I'll briefly say that they are working on a second line for a replacement gas line on part of it, gas pipeline. And I want to point out that Enbridge is based in Calgary, Alberta. That's their corporate headquarters. And 2 years ago, I think maybe a little more, I'm not sure when the actual sale was final, but our local electric utility, which was also purchased by a Calgary electric company. And that's fine. Everyone just says, well, that's kind of strange, but I guess that's how energy works. But what they also purchased was the local electric utility in the Bangor area. It's changed names a couple of times, but it's a co-owner with the major transmission lines in Maine. And in the 1960s, with the Maine Yankee Atomic Power Plant, the two main, Central Maine Power and Bangor Hydro, the two big utilities, electric utilities in Maine at the time, co-partnered to build these 345 kilovolt, the highest in New England, long-distance electric transmission lines, which is where they cite pipelines, at least gas lines. It's actually official U.S. policy. So anyway, what 2 years ago, what this Calgary Electric Company did was they bought into the long-distance electric transmission corridors in the state of Maine. And most people just don't quite fathom that or get that. But that's what's happened. That's the situation. So if you think that Calgary isn't at our back door, think again, So I'll keep people posted on this. It's going to be a big issue. If Line 3's in business now, if it's open, I know there's still challenges to it, but given this greater background that I've talked about here, I'm hoping that people can understand just how rabid, how crazy, how insane, and how willing to finance billions of dollars of construction. There's a reason why they're spending this much money. And it's a big fight, and I urge everyone to stay tuned, get involved. There was a demonstration identified. I don't remember the date. Just next week or next Saturday or something, Friday in Boston. Get involved. Tell people if you can't make it yourself. Spread the word. At every instance, we need to fight tar sands, both Enbridge and the companies themselves. Another mention, I think Liberty Mutual, I think, is an insurer of the tar sands. They were. I'm not sure if they still are. But I think that's part of the demonstration to go to their headquarters. So again, they're a local company. And in many ways, it's kind of an oxymoron, a good insurance company, but Liberty Mutual has some positive things you can say about them. Tar sands is not one of them, and they need to hear from us that, what are you doing? Are you trying to suicide for your brand name or something? We need to apply pressure at every place that we can find a way to apply pressure to. So I want to thank you for listening to me, and I can take questions as well as everybody else.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Alan, from Up Maine, our board member. And thank you to all of these folks who have joined us. Magpie, Kathy, Michele, Ken, and of course Winona, and Alan. This has been so rich. I want to let everybody know that this entire program is on our YouTube channel and will be available as soon as I get a chance to edit it and load it up, as are a whole bunch of other wonderful programs that we've had. Let's take one last question from Lynn Siegel in Boulder, Colorado, who has her hand up. Go ahead, Lynn.
Ellen, I just wanted to understand a bit more about the bitumen. It's little, I kind of can imagine what it is, but what is it actually used for within the whole system in the refineries? Is it helping to establish pathways into oil reserves and then pump it out, or how?
Sure. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So bitumen is basically, it's a hydrocarbon, but it's not the right ratio to call it petroleum. So I think coal is a hydrocarbon too. Maybe not hydrocarbon. Maybe I'm all wrong about that. But basically, it's it's carbon, and it's gooey. It's tar. That's why they named it tar sands. It's just like this gooey tar mixed in with a lot of sand and clay and whatever else is in the ground. And there's these deposits of it that are concentrated enough that they've made a method of extracting it. So the first thing to do is to melt it and get rid of the sand in it and all the other impurities. And then you just have like pure bitumen. Now, pure bitumen then is, at room temperature, it's, I don't know if you would call it a solid or not, but it's almost solid. Certainly at a ambient temperature in northern Alberta, it's solid, at freezing or 32 degrees or something. So they heat it with steam. They dilute it with chemicals and solvents, and there's a number of things that they do to turn it into a liquid at room temperature. It's still hot. Still in a pipeline, it still has to be heated, by the way. That's another one of its dreadful, criminal, carbon travesties that it has to be heated. I'm not sure what the temperature is, but it's like over 100 degrees in order just to transport it by pipeline. In addition, they have to add solvents to it because, again, bitumen by its nature is solid or semi-solid, and they have to do things to it to turn it into a liquid. So anyway, then bitumen itself has the wrong hydrogen to carbon ratio that petroleum has as an oil refinery feedstock. Crude oil that an oil refinery refines into countless different distillates and plastics and liquid propane and all these things.
Okay.
You see, so in order to turn it into feedstock, they need to take out. There's a preliminary process. They need to take out 15% of the carbon, and that's what petcoke is. So I really encourage everyone, go to Wikipedia. There's a lot of basic information, and I think it's really important if we want to actively oppose this that we. Thank you for asking the question, because it's really important that we understand the basics of this criminal corporate fossil fuel industry activity, and that's what it is. And it's just horrendous, and the public, Liberty Mutual, companies like that support the fossil fuel companies, they want to just like, oh, well, we need the oil, or something. It's like, no, we don't need tar sands. Maybe we do need at this time a certain amount of fossil fuels, but we need zero amount of tar sands. That is one, fossil fuel product, mineral product that needs to stay in the ground right now forever. And it's like a zero tolerance policy that we should be adopting. So thank you.
So it's a lot more expensive. It's a lot more inefficient to mine than just like pumping oil.
Oh, yes, sure.
Yeah.
Somebody
And that heating the line, that
junkie looking for his last vein. The addiction to oil and tar sands being the junkie's last vein. Anyway, we have the pleasure of hearing one more song from Magpie before we say goodbye to everybody. Thank you, Lynn, for that question, and thank you, Alan. Greg and Terry,
Yes.
This has been so perfect for you all to join us on this.
Well, Dean, we are honored to be part of it. Honored to be part of all these people. We know that we are the audience of the converted, but now we have to go out and convert. And we also want to say that, Alan, it starts with the trees. First, we decimate the forest before we make all that stuff.
They can't get the tar sands out without wiping out
Forest.
Vast tracts of boreal forest in northern Canada. It's absolutely, that is an environmental catastrophe that most people just have absolutely no idea about. And it seems as if the people in Canada are just perfectly okay with allowing this to go on. But if you've seen any of the photographs from that part of the country, it turns this incredible pristine wilderness into a moonscape, and all for tar sands oil. It's bad enough
that we have to deal with trying to stop the pipelines, but what's happening to the people up there and the land up there is even worse, even more horrendous.
So we're dedicating this last song to all of you activists who are keeping us informed, because that's how we write the music, from you and from our work as well. So thank you so much, Dean. Thank you so much, all of you, for your hard work. Please keep up the good work, and let's go out and tell everybody about it.
We'll see you on the marches and the picket lines.
Yes, we will. This is called "We Belong to the Earth."
We belong to the earth. We all belong to the earth. It's not that she belongs to us, it's we belong to her. We belong to her. We belong to the earth. We all belong to the earth. It's not that she belongs to us, it's we belong to her. We belong to her. Strand in a web are we, strand in a web I believe. To own it we cannot dare to dream. It's a web that we didn't weave. It's a web that we didn't weave. We belong to the earth. We all belong to the earth. It's not that she belongs to us, it's we belong to her. We belong to her. In sun and in wind and in rain is a seed of what will be. It awakens a power that grows down below. It courses through you and through me. It courses through you and through me. And we belong to the earth. We all belong to the earth. It's not that she belongs to us, it's we belong to her. We belong to her. And when our spirits take flight, we lay our bodies down. Our ashes may be carried away on the wind, but return to the birthing ground. Return to the birthing ground. We belong to the earth. We all belong to the earth. It's not that she belongs to us, it's we belong to her. We belong to her. We belong to the earth. We all belong to the earth. It's not that she belongs to us, it's we belong to her. We belong to her. It's not that she belongs to us, it's we belong to her.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Magpie. Thank you, everybody,
you.
for,
Thank you, Dean.
for being here today.
Thank you,
this has
everyone.
been
Keep
so
up the
rich.
good work. Yes.
I wish you were all here at the auditorium to enjoy pupusas and tamales.
Ooh, I would love that.
Brought to us by our cook, Luis Guzman. And hope we can all be together soon to break bread, break tamales, break pupusas together. Michele, thank you. Ken, Winona, Alan, Jackie, all kinds of other people who are here with us. Lynn Siegel from Boulder, ISC, whoever you are, Kevin Devine, Charlie, our technical director. Thank you. Lib Hutchby, Dan the Bagel Man, John Wagner, Lynn Dan, Mary Lynn Kramer, Barry Warner, Joan Livingston, D. Jamil, YH Pat, and a whole bunch of phone numbers and a whole bunch of more people on YouTube, and soon to be a whole bunch of more people. I'm just setting this up on Boston Cable Access. So we're expanding our networks in every direction, and we welcome any help we can get from any of you in making this happen. Join us for a bunch of upcoming great stuff. For example, this Sunday, books we have read, it'll be called Soapbox Sunday. You get to talk about what you've been reading lately. Judith Woodruff is our facilitator. The Sunday after that, November 7th, Kathy Kelly will join us, Emma's Revolution. The Sunday after that, Joseph Irizarry is the director of the Boston, Massachusetts campaign to end life without parole. Recently released, and he's already a director of a Tufts University entry program and the campaign to end life without parole. After that, the singer Diana Jones is doing a whole concert on a Sunday from down south. After that, Margaret Randall, Poetry and Questions, Cuba and Nicaragua. Major Danny Searson, December 5th, Beyond Afghanistan, Patriotic Descent. The feminist Sophie Lewis, all kinds of stuff. So thank you all for being here. And we'll say goodbye now by saying, mis hermanos somos la misma sangre. Our brothers, we are the same blood. Mis hermanas somos un solo río. My sisters, we are all one river. Mis hermanos, la tierra es mi madre. My brothers, the earth is our mother. Mis hermanas, somos todos hijos de ella. My sisters, we are all her children. Cuida tu madre, take care of your mother. Con todo cariño, with all of your love. Somos un solo río, we are one river. Y nuestro río correrá libre, and our river will run free. Those are the words of the late Floyd Red Crow Westerman. Thank you, everybody. Love you. And we're going to enjoy some pupusas and tamales now. Take care, everybody. See you next Sunday or some Sunday soon.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.
Okay.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.